I almost couldn't believe what I heard. Tomorrow, we lock her up, but spoken with the tranquility of someone who has already decided someone's fate. That was enough to wake me up from a dream I insisted on believing, that my son would always be my safe harbor. That single sentence shattered every remaining illusion I had about security, family, and trust. They didn't know I was still awake. That was the only reason I heard it. That whisper sliding through the thin crack of my bedroom door like smoke seeking lungs to poison. It curled down the hallway and wrapped around my heart. I froze. Every muscle stiffened in silence. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands resting on my thighs, staring into the darkness. My suitcase was already half packed, an instinct I tried to ignore. Something in the air had been warning me for days. Be ready. 2 months earlier, I had moved into my son Andrew's house in Arlington, Virginia. My small cabin became too much for me after my hip surgery, and he said, "You'll be better off here, Mom. We'll take care of you." I believed him. I desperately wanted to believe him. So I sold my house, the place that still smelled like my late husband and Sunday coffee. I transferred the money to Andrew because he promised to invest it for me. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to be a burden or seem suspicious. I wanted to trust that his love for me was enough. But love is not measured in guest rooms or clean floors. It's in the tone of voice, in the patience, in noticing if someone has eaten or if they are sitting in silence for hours. Love is care without surveillance. Tonight, I ate alone in the kitchen. Cold leftovers in plastic containers. Sarah, his wife, didn't sit with me. I asked her how her day was, and she checked the clock instead of looking at me. A conversation with me was no longer worth the minutes it took. When they returned home later, I stayed in my room. The door was left ajar so the cat could come in. The cat who liked me more than the humans who claimed to be my family. I was getting ready for bed when the words reached me. First, Andrew's voice, low, tired, then hers, sharp as a blade. She's slowing down, and she asked about the money again. "We'll sort it out tomorrow, quietly, quietly." A word like that doesn't scream. It kills softly. My entire world stopped moving. Then, slowly, my heart started beating again, urging me, "Move, before they do." I got up, gently closed the door, and locked it. I pulled the suitcase from under the bed. My hands trembled as I folded my old blue cardigan. The one Andrew said made me look too old, as if age itself was something I should be ashamed of. I packed my photographs, my passport, my ID, my life reduced to documents and fragments of memory. And then, the folder. I found it by accident days ago in Andrew's desk drawer. My name printed on the front. Inside, forms, signatures, legal papers that spoke louder than any whisper in the dark. Papers giving them control over my money, over my choices, over my future. I knew what those documents meant. I knew what tomorrow would bring. And I knew that if I stayed, I would lose everything. The clock read year 043. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have a plan. But survival doesn't wait for plans. Survival demands action. I grabbed my purse and the documents they never imagined I still had. That same night, while the house slept under the weight of lies and convenience, I left. The house that was never mine. The son who forgot who I was. The life they tried to shrink until it fit in a locked room. They thought I was powerless, but they forgot one thing. I sustained myself. I saved myself. And I would do it again. Because freedom, even at 78, is worth the run. The night air tasted different when I stepped outside. Sharp, cold, and honest. For the first time in months, I breathed without permission. The porch light flickered above me, as if uncertain whether to reveal my escape or keep my secret. I stopped, listening. The house behind me was silent. No footsteps, no whispered conspiracies. Not yet. I gripped the suitcase tighter and took the first step onto the wooden steps. My knee burned, but fear numbed most of the pain. I walked slowly at first, not out of doubt, but because I knew that noise was the enemy of freedom. The gate creaked when I pushed it open. That tiny sound felt like a scream. I stopped again, waiting for a door to open, waiting for Andrew's voice to rip through the night and demand to know where I thought I was going. But nothing happened. Silence can be merciful sometimes. The street was dark, lined with houses where families slept peacefully, daughters loved by mothers, grandparents respected by their children. I wondered how many of those windows guarded the kind of betrayal that lived in mine. I didn't know where to go. The world seemed huge again, and I was small, exactly how they wanted me to feel. But small things can slip through cracks that giants cannot. I kept walking. Each step away from that house felt like sewing back a piece of myself. My heart raced, not just from fear, but from the thrill of choosing my own direction again. A bus stop appeared ahead, illuminated by a single pole that buzzed like an impatient bee. I sat down, leaning the suitcase beside me. My hip ached, reminding me that my body was not the same one that once carried Andrew in it. I looked at my phone. Should I call someone? An old friend? A neighbor I barely remembered? But who do you call when your own son becomes a threat? I opened the contact list. So many names I hadn't dialed in years. People drift away when life changes, or when they think your story is no longer interesting. I scrolled down, slowly, hesitating at each name. Then, a message notification popped up on the locked screen. Andrew. Mom, are you awake? My blood turned to ice. Had he checked my room? Had Sarah noticed the locked door? Were they looking for me already? I flipped the phone over. I couldn't let panic decide for me. A bus approached, its headlights cutting through the darkness like a judgment. I stood up, grabbing the handle of my suitcase. The driver looked at me through the open doors. Late night for you, ma'am. I forced a smile. A new beginning, I said. My voice didn't tremble. I was proud of that. He nodded, asking nothing more. People who work at night understand that some stories are not meant for strangers. I chose a window seat. As the bus pulled away, I watched the house disappear behind a row of trees, swallowed by distance. For the first time, leaving didn't feel like losing. Sarah's whisper echoed in my head again. Tomorrow, we lock her up. Not anymore. I didn't know the final destination. I didn't know how much time I had before they realized what I had taken, and what I now knew. But I had something they didn't. My freedom. And the truth. The city lights blurred through the glass as we sped into the night. And even though I was shaking, I had never felt so strong. Eleanor Ellie. Vance leaned her head against the cold bus window. The smell of diesel and old upholstery was strangely comforting. It was the smell of the world's indifference, a world that didn't care who she was or what she had just done. This anonymity was, for the first time in months, a gift. Andrew's message had hit her like an electric shock. He was awake, and the question seemed innocent, but under the lens of betrayal, it sounded like a check-in, a rehearsal before the imprisonment. She knew that in a few hours, the sun would rise over Arlington, Virginia, and Andrew and Sarah would notice the absence of their victim, the absence of the money, and worse, the absence of the folder. Ellie reached for the soft leather purse in her lap. She unzipped it and fumbled, her aged fingers finding the rough texture of the paper. The folder. The legal arsenal they would use to strip her of her life. As the bus sped toward what she hoped was Interstate 95, away from their small sphere of control, Ellie opened the folder under the dim reading light. Inside, there was more than she expected. Document 1. The power of attorney. Eleanor's signature, clearly forged. She recognized Sarah's hurried handwriting. It gave Andrew full and unrestrained power over all her financial accounts, including the investment account where she transferred the proceeds from the sale of her house. The goal? To withdraw all the capital before she could question it. Document 2. The guardianship petition. It was the cruelest piece. A filled-out form to be filed with the Arlington County Circuit Court, claiming accelerated cognitive decline and inability to manage her own finances or self-care. If approved, Andrew would become her legal guardian, locking her away at home, or worse, in a facility, with all her money paying for her own captivity. The sight of those words blurred by the glass made her feel a bitter nausea. It wasn't just greed. It was a cold, calculated engineering to erase her existence. "This will not happen," she whispered to the reflection in the glass. She dialed a number she hadn't used in decades. The ringing seemed too loud in the bus's silence. The call went to voicemail. She tried another. Nothing. Most of her old contacts were widowed or had moved. She was, in fact, alone. But there was one person, A promise made 50 years ago at a wedding after many glasses of champagne. If you ever need a place to start over, come to Chicago. The door will always be open. The name, Martha Jenkins. Martha and Ellie had met in nursing school, but life, marriage, and distance had slowly pulled them apart. Martha lived in Chicago, Illinois, about 10 hours away by bus from where she was. It was a long shot. Martha could be dead, moved, or simply have forgotten the drunken promise of youth. But it was the only plan she had. Ellie used her phone to look up Martha's number. She typed the name, her heart beating with fragile hope. She found a residential phone number in the Lincoln Park neighborhood. Tension rises. The morning light began to flood Interstate 95, and with it, the reality that Andrew and Sarah were about to wake up. In the house in Arlington, Virginia, Andrew Vance's alarm clock went off at 6:30 a.m. He turned it off, feeling the usual weight of his life, a stressful job, debts Sarah kept piling up, and the burden of his elderly mother, Ellie. He turned to Sarah. "Are you going to sort out Mom's paperwork today? We need her money to cover the whole last month's expenses, Doug." Sarah stretched. "Of course, dear. I'll call the lawyer at 9 and lock her bedroom door as we agreed to make sure she doesn't bother us before then. Don't worry, she's not going anywhere." Andrew smiled, relieved, and went downstairs for his coffee. He was in the kitchen when he noticed Ellie's favorite cookie jar was still on the counter. She never left it there. He went upstairs, impatient. Ellie's guest room door was, strangely, locked from the inside. "Mom?" He knocked. Silence. "Mom, it's time to wake up." He used the spare key Sarah kept. The door opened. The room was perfectly neat. The bed, made. The small radio she listened to was off. The suitcase, which he had seen semi-open days before, was gone. And on the desk, the note. "Care that humiliates is not care. I am gone." It took Andrew a minute to process. Fury bubbled up. He rushed to the nightstand drawer where he kept important documents. The folder. It was gone. Andrew's scream tore through the morning stillness in Arlington. Sarah, who was coming down the stairs, saw her husband's expression. "What is it, Andrew? Where is she?" "She's gone, and she took the papers. She knows everything." Their panic was the new adrenaline shot for Ellie, who at that moment was finally talking to Martha's voice, which sounded raspy with sleep, on the other end of the line. If this story has touched you so far, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Eleanor's escape is just beginning, and the battle for her life and money will be epic. Don't miss part 2. Ellie's call to Martha was brief and charged with an urgency that allowed no explanations. "Martha, it's me, Ellie Vance. I'm sorry to call like this, but I'm in an emergency and I need to hide. Are you still in Lincoln Park?" There was a long pause. "Ellie? My God. Yes, I'm still here, but what happened? Are you okay?" "No, I'm not, and time is short. Do you remember what you said 50 years ago about the door being open?" Martha, finally waking up, responded with the loyalty of a longtime friend. "Always. Take a train or a plane. Text me when you're close. I'll make it work. Go to Union Station, Chicago." Ellie hung up, feeling tears for the first time. Not of fear, but of relief. She had a destination. She got off the bus at the next rest stop and, using the rest of her cash, bought a long-haul train ticket, paying a premium to get off I-95 as quickly as possible and cover her tracks. The train was leaving in 45 minutes. She didn't know that Andrew was already at the Arlington police station, reporting a missing person. Andrew Vance walked out of the Arlington, Virginia police precinct, wearing the look of a worried husband and devoted son. He had just reported his mother, Eleanor Vance, 78, missing. "She has mild mental confusion," he lied to the sergeant, squeezing the bridge of his nose in a rehearsed gesture of exhaustion. "The hip surgery left her frail. I fear she may have gotten lost while out for a morning walk." He played his part perfectly. Broad shoulders, choked voice, detailed description of the blue cardigan Ellie was wearing. The officer nodded sympathetically, promising to initiate the vulnerable person search protocol. The truth, however, was that Andrew didn't want Ellie to be found by the police. He wanted to find her first. He just needed the police to create a smokescreen. Back in the car, Sarah was furious, biting her nails. "A note, Andrew. She left us a note, and the folder. Do you have any idea what happens if she shows those documents to a lawyer? Andrew angrily started the engine. The sound of the powerful V6 didn't mask his fear. I know, Sarah, but she's an elderly woman. How much of a head start can she have? She only has the money I left in her wallet, about $300. She doesn't have a car, and her body is broken. Their plan was simple and cruel. Use the claim of cognitive incapacity to justify her disappearance, painting her as a confused runaway. That way, if Ellie made contact, Andrew would be the voice of reason and the all's legal authority. They began the hunt for their own blood. Andrew used Ellie's bank account, which he still controlled, despite not being able to empty it completely in time, to track the last transaction. The long-haul train ticket, bought in cash, departing from Baltimore, Maryland, destined for Chicago, Illinois. Chicago. Andrew laughed bitterly. It was Ellie's father's hometown, a nostalgic destination. It's old age, he told Sarah. She's reverting to the past. Let's catch the first flight. Meanwhile, aboard the train, Eleanor Vance's journey was a physical and emotional ordeal. The seat was hard. The window vibrated. Every jolt of the train resonated in her operated hip, turning the dull ache into sharp pangs. She held onto the folder, her only possession and her only weapon, like a talisman. She looked at her reflection in the window glass. It wasn't just the pain in her body that consumed her. It was the pain of memory. Sensory description. The landscape rushing outside, of brown fields and forgotten factories, was just a blur. But inside her mind, Ellie saw flashes. Andrew at 5, crying over a scraped knee and her rocking him. Andrew at 18, beaming, saying he got into college. The smell of his first married Christmas, when Sarah still called her mommy, and the turkey was perfect. The cruelty of the betrayal was that it didn't come from a stranger, but from the son she had nurtured. Andrew wasn't just stealing her money, he was stealing the dignity of her final chapter. She remembered a lunch a few weeks ago. She tried to talk about her late husband, about the old days. Andrew rolled his eyes, and Sarah got up, claiming she had an urgent email. The silence that followed was not one of peace, but of contempt. They were silencing her long before they planned to lock her up. Ellie tried to stand up to go to the restroom. It was an excruciating effort. Every hip muscle protested. A young woman sitting ahead noticed her difficulty and came to help. "Are you okay, ma'am? Do you need help getting to the bathroom?" Ellie accepted the help, grateful. The stranger's kindness was such a shocking contrast to Andrew's malice that she almost cried. "Thank you, dear. I'm just tired. A long journey." "Don't worry," the girl smiled. "It's almost over." No, Ellie thought. It's just beginning. If this story has touched you so far, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Eleanor's escape is just beginning, and the battle for her life and money will be epic. Don't miss part 2. While Ellie fought against pain and guilt, Andrew and Sarah had already landed at Midway Airport in Chicago. They had made a strategic call, contacting Ellie's only cousin who lived in the metropolitan area, a man named Richard, whom they barely knew. "Uncle Richard, it's Andrew. Grandma Ellie ran away. She's having an Alzheimer's episode. The police are looking for her. She might head to Chicago. If she contacts you, please call me immediately. She's a danger to herself." Andrew spread the lie like poison, setting the stage for his false narrative. Ellie hadn't just run away. She was mentally unstable. Ellie disembarked at Union Station, Chicago, in the late afternoon. The station's chaos was suffocating. People rushing, loudspeakers crackling, the smell of pizza and metal. It was the opposite of the cold silence of Arlington. She took a taxi. Martha's address, a small brick house in the charming Lincoln Park neighborhood. When the taxi stopped, Ellie hesitated. What if Martha had changed her mind? What if time had corroded loyalty, just as her own son's loyalty had been? The door opened before she could even ring the bell. Martha, a sturdy woman with gray hair and warm eyes, rushed outside. She didn't smile. She just hugged her with the strength of someone who hadn't seen a loved one in years. "Eleanor. My God, Eleanor. Come in. You're safe now." Ellie finally broke down, tears streaming onto Martha's coat. The physical and emotional pain was overwhelming. She was safe, but now came the hardest part. turning the escape into a fight. She had the evidence, and she had a refuge. The next step would be to find someone who could take the folder of documents and turn those pieces of paper into justice. Martha Jenkins' refuge in Chicago was not just a house, it was a bunker of loyalty. Martha, a retired widow, lived alone, and Ellie's arrival, with the urgency of a fugitive, reignited the fighting spirit of their youth in both of them. On the first night, Ellie slept for over 12 hours, lulled by the smell of clean linen and a silence without whispers. Upon waking, she found Martha in the kitchen, reading the local newspaper with thick-rimmed glasses. "Andrew called," Martha said bluntly, placing a cup of coffee in front of Ellie. "He called me an hour ago, crying and dramatic, saying you're disoriented and his money is missing." Ellie's stomach churned, but she wasn't surprised. "And what did you say?" "I said you weren't here, of course," Martha smiled, a hard smile. "But I said that if you showed up, I would call him, because I'm so worried about your mental health." "I bought the alibi, Ellie. He thinks we're on his side, or at least that we're neutral." Ellie's fear gave way to determination. She had a loyal ally. "Now," Martha continued, looking at the folder of documents on the table, "what exactly did they steal, and what do you need to do?" Ellie opened the folder and spread out the guardianship documents and the forged power of attorney. She explained how Andrew had convinced her to sell the house in Arlington, Virginia, to invest the money, and how the hip surgery had left her vulnerable. Martha, shocked by the coldness of the plan, made the first move. She called a neighbor, a lawyer specializing in family and estate law, named Jessica Morales. In less than an hour, Jessica, a woman in her 30s with the energy of a shark, was sitting in Martha's kitchen, analyzing the papers. "This is legal fraud," Jessica stated, tapping her finger on the power of attorney. "The claim of incapacity is also serious. Your son is trying to gain complete control over your life and your money under the guise of care." Jessica explained to Ellie that the escape was the best thing she could have done, because if Andrew had filed the documents in Arlington before she left, it would have been much harder to fight from a distance. "The first thing we'll do," Jessica said, "is file an emergency motion in Chicago to freeze all accounts in your name so Andrew can't touch another dime. Then we'll go to the Chicago police and file a report for theft and fraud. This isn't just a family dispute, it's a crime." Ellie felt a surge of power. The folder, once a symbol of her humiliation, was becoming a shield and a sword. Andrew and Sarah, still in Chicago, were in growing panic. Andrew checked Ellie's account balance every hour. The money was still there, but he couldn't transfer the total amount as the bank began to flag the unusual transactions. Night fell. Andrew, frustrated, sat in the hotel room and called Ellie's cell phone, hoping she would answer out of desperation. He called 3 times. On the 4th, Ellie answered. Andrew's voice, once dramatic, was now tinged with anger. "Mom, where the hell are you? You put us in a panic. I'm filing a missing person report. You're forcing me to tell the police you're not well." Ellie was silent for a moment, taking in her son's audacity. The Chicago air seemed to carry the coldness of her response. "You didn't leave me. You tried to lock me up, Andrew. And don't you dare lie to me about being worried. I have the folder, I have the power of attorney, and I have the guardianship form." The silence on the other end was the sound of defeat. Andrew stammered, "Mom, I can explain. It was just for your safety, after the surgery, and—" "No," Ellie interrupted him, her voice low and firm. "It was for my money. I feel sorry for you, Andrew. You traded love for a few $100,000. I'm going to fight for it. And I'm going to tell my story. You won't silence me." She hung up. It was the last contact she would have with the son she raised. The next day, Ellie and Jessica Morales went to a Chicago judge's office. With the folder in hand, Jessica filed the motion to freeze assets and also a petition to declare Andrew Vance legally unfit to manage third-party finances based on the evidence of fraud. The legal war had begun, and Andrew, the worried son, would receive a summons within a few hours that would turn his hunt into a desperate defense. The Chicago press would soon begin to sniff out the story of an elderly mother who ran away from her own son. Ellie's freedom was not just physical, it was the power to expose the truth. The news of Eleanor Vance's escape, 78, from Arlington, Virginia to Chicago, Illinois, exploded in the media within a few weeks. Lawyer Jessica Morales was incisive. The story of the mother who ran away from her own son to avoid imprisonment and the expropriation of her assets was irresistible. Ellie not only froze Andrew's accounts, but also publicly exposed the attempt at forced guardianship. Andrew and Sarah, who had arrived in Chicago to find their missing mother, quickly found themselves surrounded by reporters. The image of worried son and daughter-in-law collapsed under the weight of the court summons and the fraud complaint filed by Ellie. The final hearing took place in the Cook County Courthouse in Chicago, 6 months after the escape. The courtroom was packed, not only with the judge, lawyers, and staff, but with members of the press and onlookers. Ellie's story had struck a nerve in society. Ellie, sitting next to Jessica, looked calm, wearing her blue cardigan, the same one Andrew said made her look old. She was stronger, nourished by Martha's loyalty and the clarity of her mission. Andrew and Sarah tried to maintain the narrative. Their expensive and aggressive lawyer tried to disqualify Ellie, painting her as a confused elderly woman, manipulated by greedy friends and lawyers. He pointed to the hip surgery, the recent grief from widowhood, the disorientation that made her run away in the middle of the night. Then, Jessica Morales presented the final proof. "Your Honor," Jessica declared, holding up the folder of documents, "the only evidence necessary to unmask Mr. Vance's concern is the power of attorney dated February 10th, signed after Mrs. Vance transferred the money from the sale of her house, giving him complete control, and the guardianship petition, which he would attempt to file the day after the escape. The defendant was not trying to protect his mother. He was trying to incarcerate her and steal from her." The judge examined the documents and then looked at Andrew. Andrew Vance, a man in his 40s who presented himself as a pillar of the community, looked small and sweaty in his expensive suit. Ellie was called to testify. She stood up slowly, feeling the pain in her hip, but ignoring it. She looked directly at the judge. She didn't talk about money. She talked about the trust that was broken. "I gave Andrew the only thing I had left, my unwavering faith in my son," she said, her voice steady. "When you lose your husband, you lose your past. When you lose your home, you lose your present. But when your own son tries to imprison you, you lose hope in the future. I ran away not only to save my money, but to save my dignity and the right to choose my own ending." The judge delivered the verdict in a matter of minutes. Decision: Andrew Vance's guardianship petition was summarily denied. The power of attorney was declared null and void due to fraud. Most importantly, the judge ordered the immediate return of all of Eleanor Vance's capital, along with an injunction preventing Andrew from having any contact or control over his mother's finances under penalty of criminal prosecution. Andrew and Sarah left the courthouse humiliated. Their hunt had failed, and now they would be investigated for fraud. Ellie, under the camera flashes, looked at Martha. Her life had changed. She didn't just get her money back, she got her voice back. She had a new home in Chicago, the loyalty of an old friend, and the determination of a new life. The final step was a symbolic gesture. Ellie donated a portion of her money to a legal aid institution in Chicago, focused on protecting the elderly from financial abuse. She was finally free to cry, but this time they were not tears of fear. They were tears of justice and rebirth. She was 78, had a new city, a sore hip, and the most exciting story to tell. She saved herself, and in doing so, she became a beacon for all mothers and fathers who one day had to choose between comfort and freedom. If Eleanor's journey inspired you to never give up, leave your like, subscribe to the channel for more real and emotional stories, and activate the bell so you don't miss the next one. Leave a comment below with the city you watched from and what was the most impactful moment of this epic escape. Help us make this story of overcoming reach millions. The darkness of Arlington was my only ally. Fear froze my hip, but her whisper drove me. Tomorrow, we lock her up. I was 78, with stolen money and only a folder of documents as a weapon. In the middle of the night, I left my own son's house. He wanted me incapable, silenced, locked in a room. But he forgot that the mother he tried to destroy was the same one who taught him how to fight. See the escape, the hunt, and the shocking truth revealed in the Chicago courtroom. What happens when a son betrays a mother's love for greed?